Hello there, it's Miss Minion,
And Mr. Holden.
and we're going over progressive video 2. So we have learning targets. These are all the ones we're going to attempt to cover that are on your learning target sheet, and we're still asking the central question, how did progressives try to change life in the U.S. in the late 1800s and the early 1900s? So starting with child labor and working conditions, a lot of children worked in factories and mines. Specifically in the mines, they were called breaker boys, and these are boys that would like pick out the slag out of coal, and it would like break their backs because they were small and their fingers were so small they could pull out the slag. Their backs were permanently bent, their hands were crippled. Most children were forced to work to help their family to just survive. And also, people liked them because children could get behind machines, places adults couldn't get. So this was really dangerous for children. But legislation pushed through during the Progressive Era a set of rules for minimum age for employment and maximum hours worked. And so that's going to be really good for you guys and for the future generations so they don't have to work. All right.
Okay, so the purpose of the labor union was strength in numbers, and ways they did this was create a group of people that would, work to increase the rights of the people that work. So the Knights of Labor are an example of this. Is the first union to accept the workers of all races and gender. They pushed for the 8-hour workday, equal pay for women, and accepted skilled and unskilled workers. This labor union actually didn't last very long. It actually died out after the 1892 and 1893 during the recession and everything.
But what's cool about it, like it says, was one of the first unions to accept workers of all races and genders. So it does become a very big labor union.
And then you have the American Federation of Labor. This is the AFL, but they only accepted skilled white males, and they actually won higher wages, but it was only for those skilled white males. So it was headed by Samuel Gompers, and it actually still exists today. It's called the AFL-CIO. So it's one of the longest standing labor union.
And yet, like Mr. Holden said, only white males got the privilege to be in this one, but it did make major progress for labor unions, but like you said, unfortunately, it was just for the white males. Okay, then we have the IWW, or they called them the Wobblies. They were created in 1905, and basically this is like a labor union that people called radical. Mostly were unskilled workers, and they believed in socialism. Here's a definition of socialism: an economic or political philosophy that favors public control of property and income. So this is kind of what their beliefs were, and so the IWW at this time was sort of oftentimes seen as radical and looked down upon because America is a capitalist society and people were afraid of socialism. Some setbacks for labor unions would be some great strikes that happened. In the Great Railroad Strike of 1877, the railroad workers were trying to protest wage cuts, and so all across the nation they striked. But instead of peaceful striking, it turned into violence, and they literally began like pulling up the railroad tracks, destroying the railroad tracks. So it made the government have to step in and stop the strike. I don't know what that is. Okay. So, the Homestead Strike was in 1892, and this was at Andrew Carnegie's plant. This is the one we talked about in class where 10 people died, and so that's one of the bigger strikes. And then the Pullman Strike, a Pullman car is the first type of like comfort luxury railroad car, and Pullman he had 120,000 of his workers striking. What's interesting about him is that his workers went to live in the town of Pullman where they created these Pullman cars, and Pullman like basically charged them crazy prices and paid them a little bit, and so they ended up striking. Okay, so some other things happening at this time. African Americans are starting to use their voice to demand change. So a lot of times, and a lot of people will talk about how they were ignored by the progressive movement. We won't talk about them much, or their advancements, because there wasn't many advancements during this time. But there's two key players, Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois. Booker T. Washington told African Americans to take a lower status temporarily and get educated, because with education will come equality. W.E.B. Du Bois did not agree with Booker T. Washington. He thought that was leading backwards. He wanted them to fight for their rights now, and he founded the NAACP. We'll talk a little bit more about those two in class as well. Also at the same time, women's right to vote, women's suffrage is going on. So people that are for the vote are on this side. Women, they want slavery abolished, and women still can't vote. Slavery was abolished and women still couldn't vote. So they are pushing for a constitutional amendment. On the other side of the bench, we have people who are against the vote for women. There was women who were against the vote for women. They said that if women voting would be unfeminine and immoral. Men were worried about women being in the political field and felt that women's place was at home. Okay, so that's the notes for this week, and we will see you in class.
Bye.
See you.